Welcome to Here's the Memo Conversations, a space where I sit down with inspired guests who have navigated some of life's greatest challenges with resilience. They're here to share their stories to offer you love, connection, and hope on your own journey. Because remember, we're all just walking each other home. So Sheryl, thank you so much for being here today. And before we get into it, I sort of want to share with our listeners how we met. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I moved to Santa Monica with my two older children. Caroline was 5, Jack was 2, and my husband was traveling. We had moved from New York City. So I was alone all week. I didn't know a soul. And then 3 weeks into our time here, my dad died. So I went back to Boston and went through that, came back, and the first time I was able to pick my daughter up at kindergarten, Caroline, my little girl, ran up to me and said, I made a best friend, Sarah. And I said, oh, and Sheryl happened to be her mom. So I didn't small talk you. I was like, hi, how are you? I just got here from New York. We don't know anybody, and my dad died. I was like crazy. I vomited emotions onto Sheryl, and she was like, I got you. Let's take a walk. Do you want to walk me home from school? And we walked back to your beautiful house. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you can bond over being in the same club, our dads were dead,
The
you
Dead
know,
Dads Club.
the Dead Dads Club. I think it's, my partner today would say it's a brutal full thing,
Okay.
brutal and beautiful.
Yeah, I was so grateful to you because you had walked through it way before me, actually. Your dad died young.
Yeah, he was 67. I was 24, and it was the year of my wedding.
Yes.
So he never made it.
Wow. Okay. So the reason I had Sheryl here today, Sheryl and her husband Glenn were so good to me. They would have me for dinner. They had 2 daughters, Sarah and her older sister Morgan. You guys were like the it family. They had this gorgeous house. And if anybody knows Santa Monica, they live north of Montana. And I just felt so at home at your house.
Mm.
And I was by myself, and it was so awesome. And then I was looking for condos and this and that. And Glenn, your husband, had the answers. He was like a pillar in our community. We all were in this community at this elementary school in Santa Monica. And our daughters were friendly. I loved having Sarah over at the house. She had such a great imagination. We had so much fun. And then life kind of went on, and the girls were in middle school, right?
Yeah,
It was the year your daughter Sarah had her bat
it was
mitzvah.
definitely sixth grade.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was 2013.
Yeah.
I get a text from another mom. Did you hear about Glenn? I was like, what? What happened? And Glenn took his life. So the reason I'm interviewing you, Sheryl, is because this is horrifyingly something people go through. And you're one of my dearest soul sister friends who I don't see often enough. But the way you walked through it was so inspiring, so raw, so real. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to tell your story, and for people out there that go through this to maybe glean from your process. So I'm going to just give you the floor. I kind of want to start at the beginning. Like, how did you meet Glenn? What was that like? And your early marriage?
So we met in Los Angeles 2 summers before we graduated from college, kind of randomly, and nothing really came of it. It was the summer, and it wasn't until a year later that we ended up at the same parties. It was my camp friends, his college, high school friends, and we saw each other at the beach at Temescal Canyon. And a couple nights later, I was at Malibu party. He was not there, but the friend who I knew for a long time, who Glenn went to high school and college with, he was the person who introduced us. And so I said to him at the party, what's up with your friend Glenn? I'm interested. And turns out after that summer, after Glenn and I had definitely gotten together, Glenn told me our friend said that I was geographically undesirable because I lived in Simi Valley. I grew up there, and Glenn lived in Studio City, Sherman Oaks area.
What?
I was like, what? That is just horrible.
So you were geographically undesirable. What were you, a half hour away?
Yeah, I mean, I was like from Simi Valley to Sherman Oaks, I can get there in less than 30 minutes. I was like pitching myself.
And it's not even trafficy.
No, not back then. It was way less trafficy.
So how did it get going?
So the end of the summer, we were definitely officially like into each other. So much so one night I slept over, did not call my parents, who were so freaking pissed at me. And the next morning, I walked into the kitchen, and that's when I met his mother, Glenn's mom. And I was like, good morning.
Wait, so you slept at his family house?
I did. Yeah. And
That's happened in my house.
it happens.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so now you're falling for each other.
Yeah.
And was it a quick courtship? You were so young.
We were so young. I knew that I just knew he
Yeah.
was the guy. I
Yeah.
just knew. So after he went back to Penn and I went to Syracuse. So I guess I was like a little bit behind their schedule or whatever. My girlfriend and I went to Palm Springs and we were in the pool and I was like, let's talk about my wedding.
This is so cute. I find this so cool because you guys both went back to separate colleges and you kept the commitment. That is not easy in
No,
college.
we kept the commitment of we'll see. We'll
Okay.
see each other. We'll try to hang out. Glenn and I mean, the amount of shenanigans we pulled just so we could be together. But we also were very much like, no, we each need to have our own senior year experience. And we
Wow.
did.
Wow. So you supported each other in that way.
It was like that from day one with each other.
So how quickly did you guys get married after college?
He lived in Colorado right after college, and I was working at a talent agency. So we had very different lives. And even I dated a little bit in LA. We were 21 and we got married when we were 25.
Wow. So do you want to talk about your marriage and about having your children?
Yeah, I would do it all over again. I would do it the exact same way, even with all the things we didn't like about each other, or all the things, that came across our paths that were hard and tough, and things that just were the deep valleys. He was very big on being honest, which is ironic since I didn't know why he killed himself.
Yeah.
That's not who he was. So, but he was always very big on being transparent, honest, talking it through, not leaving the other person in the dark, putting everything out on the table as much as possible. And I definitely grew up in an environment like that. So from day one, we communicated very well. Then I remember when we had this great wedding and great honeymoon and all those early things. And he started a business that he did very, very well. It was in real estate. And since my dad had passed before we got married, my sister and I took over his PR business. And so I was also somewhat supporting us. And also my sister and I were supporting my mother, some financials at that point. And so it was always a constant like, okay, he would say, all right, let's have a powwow. Let's run through the numbers. Let's make sure we're okay. How are you feeling? He'd always want to know, are you overworked? Are you able to handle it all? Because my mom was a lot. My mom was not well. My mom had multiple sclerosis and she was in a wheelchair, and we had caregivers in and out of the home. And it was a lot of responsibility. And my sister lived in New York and I was here in LA. So he was just so good at that.
Yeah.
Checking in.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing about who he was. If you had to describe Glenn, how would you describe him as a man?
So kind, incredibly giving, committed, truthful. But today, after he killed himself, I have different adjectives for him.
Right. Because what he did is so shocking and out of character. It's like now you think back, wait, Who was, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, I still am sitting here listening to you thinking, was he murdered? Like, come on. I can't believe it because what I remember is he was the head of the dad's club at our elementary school. He did a lot of work on himself. He was very emotionally evolved. He was a spiritual guy. Wasn't he on the board at your temple?
Yes.
He was a great dad. I mean, if you told me to list 20 men that I thought could do something like this, Glenn would not have made my list. Never.
Same. Same with me.
It's really mind blowing. So, anyway, what did you appreciate most about Glenn, and what are some vivid memories you have?
I just want to say one thing before I go into that. You said at the beginning in your intro, you walked through it, the survival, I guess,
The grief.
and the grief. Yeah. Thank you. And it's not past tense. I mean, I'm still walking through it, right?
Totally.
And so every day, there isn't a day or more than a few hours that I don't think of him or I see something and it'll trigger in a good way something. And I would say as time has pushed forward, I am obviously in a better place, if you will. I've changed so much that I do and can really remember the best of times with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest, most beautiful thing, even when it was so annoying, is how good of a dad he was.
He was
You
such a
know,
good dad.
he didn't know how, like, where are the socks? How do you get her to stop crying? Sarah one day woke up. I mean, she was barely 2 and she was like, I'm not wearing diaper anymore. And he was like, okay. And I come home and I'm like, what'd you do? What do you mean? All that I would do it again, like I said, but that was annoying. But he showed up every Thursday. He worked either from home or took the full day off of work to be with them.
Yeah.
And I know today's parenting style is more like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was glorious. He taught him ride a bike. He pulled out the skateboards, the scooters, he did all that. The
Yeah.
stuff I was scared of, for sure.
Yeah. I just felt like he was always around.
Always.
My husband traveled, and then whenever I came to your house, Glenn would be doing homework with Morgan or something like that. He was just always around, walking them to school, walking them home. And then you got the dog, Aggie, and
Mm-hmm.
then Aggie would be, it was, yeah. I do want you to speak to the realness of your marriage because sometimes it can come across like he was this perfect person
Oh,
and then he
mhm.
killed himself. You had a very real marriage.
Very real. I would say his biggest flaw and my biggest gripe with him is he hated to take sides. His friend group called him Switzerland.
I love it.
He wouldn't, again, we grew up in very different homes, and my home was loud. If you were angry about something, you heard whoever was pissed, slamming a door, whoever it was, my sister, me, one of my parents, it was okay to express that stuff. And I would say as he got older, he became less of that person. He just showed his emotions less. Everything was like all good.
Yes, that's how I remember him. He was that guy that everything's all good. And he kind of always had your answers too. Whenever I needed advice, I was new in Santa Monica and would ask a question about a restaurant or a good place to buy a condo or what that teacher's like. Glenn just knew. And sometimes he had a smirk on his face that sort of said, it's all good. I got you. I got your answers. I'm the Buddha here. So that was sort of a shift from how he was when you were dating and engaged and newly married, when he was honest and authentic in all the things.
Yeah, when I met him, it was less that. He
Interesting.
was able to have the harder, deeper conversations. And I'm not sure when it changed, but it used to aggravate me because I mean, I had a PR business and there were so many ups and downs in that. And I'd come home, rah, rah, ranting and raving and
Yep.
all of it about a client or a journalist or someone screwed me on this. And he wouldn't give it to me. And that was annoying.
He wouldn't take your side.
Never. He wouldn't take the other side.
Would he play devil's advocate or would he just be down the middle?
Sometimes he would play devil's advocate, and sometimes you don't need that.
You don't want that.
I don't want it. Yeah.
You just want validation to move on with your evening.
Exactly. And it was like, you try and talk to those fuckers, you know? And even in his real estate business, he'd get off the phone and I'd hear him because we shared an office. He'd get off the phone with an investor and it just didn't sound good, you know, on his side. And I'm like, what the heck? I wouldn't stand up to somebody where I'm like, what? Come on.
Do you mean he wouldn't stand up for himself on the phone, or he'd stand up for himself on the phone and then when he got off, he was like, it's all good?
Both.
He was a really successful dude.
Very successful, but he was just such a pacifist.
Yeah.
I always wonder how he would operate in today's like political world. I just would probably kill him, I think.
Wow. That's so interesting to think about. So, okay. Can we sort of talk about leading up to his death? Did you notice anything different about him?
The only thing that I noticed that was different, maybe 3.5 weeks before he died. So it was like second week in December. We were on a walk and he asked me, do you know what a narcissist is? And I'm like, whoa, kind of. I'm like, I know the layperson version of that. Isn't that someone who like can't really take anything in and only does what they care about for themselves kind of thing? Yeah. You can correct me,
Yeah. I mean, briefly, narcissists are very self-centered. They love admiration. They may love bomb you to reel you into their lives. They're entitled. They lack empathy. And they're manipulative, controlling, and they'll try to isolate you from others. And it's all really a cover for low self-esteem and self-hate. So that's my quick definition. And where do you think Glenn was coming from with that question?
At that time, I knew something was stirred up in him because also, again, we were in the same office and we were in the same house. And I heard conversations, business side, family side, and I knew he was struggling with something.
Yeah.
And I asked him, and he was in therapy, not at that point. His therapist actually had passed away. And so he hadn't yet found a new therapist. We had the same internal medicine doctor and we were in there because we were getting our flu shots and all that stuff. And he even asked, I need some recommendations. So he was looking to find someone new, but his biggest takeaway from therapy is, God, it's just so hard. Why do they want to talk about my childhood? And like, it's very important. It gives the therapist some insight into how you think or operate. I addressed it a little bit. I'm like, oh, like that's something that is an interesting topic for you, narcissism and who you are gravitating to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But always to everybody else, it's all good.
Yeah. So that was his question. And did he act any different or?
No, it was pretty status quo. We had booked a trip a month ahead in January. We always tried to go away and we were so grateful for his parents because they came in and would stay with the kids. So I was pretty focused on that trip and getting excited. And our kids were older, Sarah was
12.
Thank you. And Morgan just turned 15. And it was like, oh, goody, we're going to have a week away. We loved those trips. So that's where my head was. And also my sister and her family was in town. Our friends Connie and Ed, they live outside of DC. They were coming to visit. And so I knew right after Connie and Ed, we were going to go on this trip. So I was so trying to wrap up business. It was the holidays, busy, and it was like status quo for our family. I mean, who's picking up from gymnastics? Who's driving to gymnastics? Morgan has practice for pep squat squad.
Yeah.
Everything was moving.
Yeah. So can you talk about the day?
Yeah. So we woke up. I'm sitting in the chair, this exact chair that he was sitting in, because this chair has always been here. And we woke up. We both decided that we wanted to go on a run. It was a lovely run. We did the Santa Monica stairs. We came back. We ate oatmeal, or he did. I think, in fact, he was eating oatmeal right here where I'm sitting. And he was doing some work, and he was also reading the newspaper. And I was in the bathroom. We were able to see each other and chit-chatting. He was asking me something about work. What do you think? We called him the kid. He was working for Glenn as an employee and helping him with his business. And whatever the question was, I don't know, but it was something about him. And I'm like, yeah, I think you're a really good mentor to him. And we went about our day, and I went to the office, and so did he. And I was working. And it was right after New Year's, and I had made plans for us to go out. We were going to meet up with our couple of friends, and we were all going to have drinks locally. And so I confirmed that. It was like around 11:30 in the morning. He came into my office and he said, I'm going to go on a walk and clear my head, which was not unusual. And I was like, okay. And I said, oh, by the way, did you see I bought you some new hair gel from Mexico? And he was like, yeah, I got it. Thanks, or whatever. And that was really our last in-person conversation, the frickin' hair gel.
I can't believe this. So then he went out and cleared his head and never came home.
Never came home. I texted him. It was probably 3 o'clock-ish, say. And our housekeeper was here that day. And he was really in charge of all of our finances and handled all the money and that sort of thing. And I texted him and said, kind of like checking in, Carla's leaving. Do I need to pay Carla? And he said, no, I paid her. And then that was kind of that conversation. And then I texted again, like, remember, we've got drinks. And then I said, where are you? And he said, oh, I'm just hanging out. I'm sitting looking out at the ocean. And that was the last conversation we had by text.
And then when did you start getting worried?
Like probably, so it was in December, or no, it was January. Sorry,
January 3rd.
Sorry.
It was January 3rd. I'll never forget
And
it.
no, I was just thinking like it was dark. It got dark early, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like texting him, like, hello, what time are you going to be home? And he wasn't replying. And that was probably not that long after we texted, maybe 4 o'clock. Then I called his friend and a business partner of his. And I said, have you heard from him? And he said no. And I was like, oh, that's so weird because he should be home by now. And I don't know where he is. And then he's like, okay, well, let me check around. He was going to call some of the other friends. And then I decided to call another friend from like a different friend group. And this friend was like a little worried. What do you mean you didn't hear from him? And that made me worried. And it was this back and forth with both friends, and they knew each other. So then I was like, well, this one said this and this one said that. And then it was dark. And now I'm like, what the fuck? This is worrisome. So I canceled drinks. My friends came over. I called one of the friends and I was like, this is not right. Something's wrong.
Did you feel at that point like maybe he got in a car accident on the way home from his hike? Or did it even occur to you that he might have hurt himself?
What I ultimately thought is he got stoned, was on this little hike, lost track of time, maybe fell.
Got it.
But I really didn't know where. I knew he did a lot of bike riding up in like Westridge area. And so
you didn't even know where he was walking.
No,
or
I
hiking.
guessed. I was guessing. And so I said somewhere he could see the ocean, which I don't really know. I still don't know. And so then the other friend called and was like, did you hear from him? And I'm like, no, did you? And then the first friend said, I think you should call the police. And he went out with two other friends looking for him. They found his car.
Okay.
In the Westridge area. I had already talked to the police and they understood that this was serious. I'm like, no, this is not right. And I don't really know or remember really. I don't know how they knew where to go. Maybe the friends called because they saw his car, but they definitely saw not a gun, but like the case in his trunk.
Oh, okay.
which is why the other friend was freaking out because he gave him the gun because Glenn, prior to all of this, after that Sandy Hook,
Yeah.
the
Sandy Hook
shooting,
in Connecticut.
Glenn told this one friend who had armor, right? That he was freaking out for his family. That's a lie. I
Mm,
can't believe that was true. And the friend was like, okay. And he's like, I think I should have maybe a gun in the house. I don't even know if Glenn ever even shot a gun. Maybe at like camp, a BB gun. I don't even know. And the friend, gave him the gun. But I didn't know about that. And I was very pissed when I found out there was a gun and when I understood that it was given to him by this person. And I was like, how do you not tell me? He's like, well, I thought Glenn would tell you.
yeah. Oh my
Not
God.
transparent.
Right.
Once that police and they told me about the gun, I'm like, oh, he killed himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, we are planning a funeral. Oh, motherfucker. And then the friends started coming to the house, and, I had to call his parents. And oof, that was not good. It was so not good. And you're just like in this like shock, right? It's like you just do it.
Yeah.
I was definitely drawing upon a little bit, what I went through with my dad, because it happened pretty quickly with my dad. And my mom couldn't make these calls. So, like, it was me and my Aunt Linda, and we rattled it off. You just do it.
Yeah. So then people started coming over.
Yeah. So, my kids, I said they can't find daddy is missing. I mean, I was pretty honest at that point. I didn't say about a gun. I didn't want to say anything to jump ahead. Morgan was practicing a cheer for her pep squad because she had just made varsity. And I sent Sarah's friends home and I put my kids in my bed and we turned on the Food Network or something. And my girlfriend Amy made the kids cinnamon toast or Nutella toast or whatever. And they fell asleep in my bed. And, people were coming over at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And once I, knew.
That is so incredible. The community you had around you
Oh,
and
yeah.
continue to have. You have so many people that loved you guys.
It's what you make it. If you're going to take, it's a natural thing to give.
Well, I also think you guys both grew up in LA and you both were really good to your families and extended families and just a lot of traditions and holidays and being there for
Mm-hmm.
people. So they showed up for you. So when did you find out he actually did it?
It was in the middle of the night. It was like 2. And at that point, I mean, there are no tears. Your heart is beating so fast. You're parched because you don't want anything. You're just trying to make sure you have words to be able to say what happened. Killed himself. What do you mean? Killed himself with a gun in Westridge. And the police came to my home to fully make sure there weren't any other weapons in the home. I had Santa Monica police here, I had LAPD. LAPD was so much nicer to deal with.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just at that point, they were so helpful and so supportive. And that felt good.
Yeah. So then in the morning, you tell the kids.
Yeah. So I had all the friends. It was a group of girlfriends and my cousin Cindy, thank God. And Connie was still in town. And we all walked upstairs. I was, of course, in front. I had them wait outside of my bedroom. I crawled into bed with my kids and I told them. And they both immediately, burst into tears.
Yeah.
And then the group came in. And then we were all on the bed. I would never really want to have that photo, but I'd love to like look at it now from feet away.
Yeah. Oh my
And,
God.
Morgan was very much this too shall pass. That was one of her first ways of coping. And she put post-its everywhere in her room. This too shall pass. And Sarah, little Sarah, hadn't told them yet how he had done it. And Sarah was just like, do I still have to have a bat mitzvah? I don't, so, which makes sense. I mean, she was so young and didn't know, like, what is my life going to be like tomorrow? Right. And their fourth and fifth grade teacher, Mr. Ostrom from our school, I was good friends with him at that point, and he called, and that was like 9 in the morning. And my house was full at that point, by the way. Coffee, bagels, everyone showed up doing exactly what, feeding each other, giving me the space that I needed when I needed to talk. But Mr. Osterman, he was like, what's your plan, dear? And I said, well, I need to tell the kids. I need to tell them exactly how it happened. And he said, what do you need from me? And I said, I need you to be here when I tell them. Yeah. And he said, fine, I'll be right there. Walked in, in moments after the kids were all of, Sarah Morgan's friends were here. I'm sure you remember that, Amy, you were here. And everyone was like so happy to see him. He was such, I don't know, like a relief.
A grounding force.
Yes, that is such a perfect way to say it. And I pulled the kids and I said, let's have a quick talk. And we sat down in Morgan's room. We all sat with our legs crossed on the floor, knees touching. And I held them and I said, this is what Daddy did. And I don't know why. And you need to know this first because I'm sure people are going to talk about it. You never have to address it with anyone. People who are in this home will be completely respectful of that, but I don't know what it's going to be like outside of this house. But for the time being, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to be the best people we know ourselves to be, and we're going to be together. Yeah. And Sarah, the cutest, was like, I just feel like maybe if I had only ordered French toast the other day and not pancakes, it would be different. She was already in the bargaining.
Yes.
Which is crazy when you think about grief. Yeah. How universal it is.
Yeah, it is. Just briefly, the stages of grief by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross are denial, bargaining, anger, sadness, acceptance. And then with this guy, David Kessler, she added another stage later, meaning. And the premise is we cycle around them in no particular order, and we keep cycling and cycling until we come into a new normal. And they really are seemingly universal.
It was like Morgan was already in coping mode, and they're never in the exact stages.
Morgan was in denial.
Is that what that is?
Well, she wanted she wanted to bypass all the stages and go straight to acceptance. Let me be in denial and let me jump to acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And Sarah was like, well, wait, if I just ordered the pancake, she was bargaining. Oh my gosh. Well, I just remember, Sheryl, in the aftermath, you did a nightly blog and we did a meal train. So different people would sign up to bring a meal to Sheryl and Morgan and Sarah's house. And it was so funny because if the door was ajar, you could come in and visit. If the door was locked, leave your dinner and get out, right? And I loved that. And I remember I dropped dinner and I got to come in. And honestly, it's so hard to be around somebody in deep grief. And you made it so easy because you were just completely real. I mean, we should treat our friends like our friends no matter what they're going through. But it can be so hard and awkward because you don't know what to say. There's nothing you can do. There is nothing you can say or do to make it better. You just have to be willing to bear witness and be uncomfortable. And just show up with love, not show up trying to fix anything. And you got to get comfortable with people crying and people in devastation and possibly in shock. And you made it so easy because you were so authentic and what's the word? Uninhibited and irreverent. Yes, that word. You just made it so easy because you were being yourself so I could be myself. And there was an openness. I literally ran into a mom recently, and this happened in 2013. It's now 2025. And this mom said, I still remember Sheryl's blogs and how much it helped her because right now her husband has cancer and he is dying. And she said, I love the way Sheryl described grief and she was just unfiltered. So I wanted you to know that. But can you talk a little bit about that, just that first 6 months of the meal delivery, the nightly blog? Can you say how that helped you or not even helped you, but how that informed your healing process?
The meal train thing is just like the most brilliant thing ever. There's a schedule and the people who are mourning know what to expect. And honestly, I didn't really care. You don't want to make those decisions, right? Like, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? What am I packing the kids for lunch? Breakfast. I could barely function in Ralph's at
Yep.
that point.
I remember.
That supermarket was so overwhelming. And you just want to wear a shirt that says, "My husband killed himself. Don't fucking talk to me." You know?
I'm sorry. No, I remember a story when you told me. It was like 6 weeks maybe after he passed, and you said, I thought I was ready for Ralph's. I thought I was ready to go. And I drove there, and you said that you went to get turkey pepperoni and you just started raging because you couldn't find it. I loved the story because I'm like, that is grief. You think you're okay, you venture out, and then you just get overtaken.
That's exactly right. You know, my girlfriend, she lost her husband a few years ago, and she calls it an emotional tsunami.
Yes.
She coined that phrase so well because you don't know when it's coming and your back is to it.
I know. I love that. And I love that you're sharing this because I think that this can go on. Like you said, you're still grieving Glenn. You will probably always hold Glenn in your heart and always hold the grief of Glenn. You just will. It doesn't end. There's no expiration date on grief. And I think people feel like they should be able to move on and let this go, and or they feel like other people are sick of hearing it. Because I don't think other people are sick of hearing it. I think we think they are, right? And so it's okay to talk about it for the first year or so, and then it's like we don't want to bring it up anymore, but we still hold it. And yeah, and I think grief can come in hot even years after you lose the person. It's just the way it goes.
I agree. I still, if something happens in my world that I get an itch inside, like I still want to call my dad.
Yeah.
I still want to call my mother. And I certainly still want to call Glenn. And I know those phone numbers. Those are phone numbers I will never, ever, ever forget, you know?
Yep.
And one other thing I was going to say is you feel like you're a broken record, right? When you're sharing it with the same people, but also people don't ask you, like, how's it going? And sometimes you don't want to talk about it and you say, I'm actually okay today. Yeah,
Yep.
good day, normal, ordinary, thank goodness. But the days that people do ask, it's very meaningful still.
Yeah, that's good for me to hear because it's been so many years and you're happily in a new relationship, which we'll get to that. Not such a new relationship, actually. And before we do, let's get back to the mail train and the blog. How was it to write about it every night? Was that helpful to you?
Really was. At first, it was like I just wanted to thank everybody. And I wanted to call out these most amazing dinners. Pizza soup, for example. That's yours.
Yes, I made pizza soup. Compliments to my mother-in-law.
And we loved it. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna make you some pizza soup.
Oh, please.
I'm gonna make it again. That's funny.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And so that's where it initially started. And then, you know, your brain starts to become less fumbly. You know, you can start really saying some cohesive sentences. It was like I knew I needed to write how that day was or what tomorrow might look like, a story that I needed to remember. Because I mean, I have it all in my computer somewhere.
This is a book. This is a book. I really, really feel that way. There should be a book of your blogs in the first year after Glenn. It would be so helpful for people going through it. Yes. So it helped you to stay connected and to share your feelings.
Yeah, it's like a little extra therapy. I mean, I did twice a week therapy with my therapist and then my psychiatrist I was seeing and the rabbi I was seeing and all the friends. And, you know,
then you did a grief group, right?
I did do a grief group. It was specific to suicide.
And how was that?
It was great because I was sitting in a small group. There were probably 8 of us, including me. And 2 of us lost partners to suicide. There were 2 people who lost siblings to suicide, and another person who lost his mother and grandfather to suicide.
Wow.
It was so helpful because it was so much like you'd interrupt each other and be like, yeah, I get that.
I love it. I do think that's the most helpful thing you can do for yourself when you're healing is be with other people who are walking the same road. truly, in anything you're going through, whether it's an addiction recovery or grief or illness, having people on the same path, you can let your hair down and just tell it like it is. So I do want to jump forward a bit because I find this story remarkable and I'm just going to share it. How many years after Glenn passed did you meet Barry?
I met Barry. We actually met in 2014 because I was in this year of, yes, not dating.
Yep.
I mean, a little, but
Yep.
mostly I need to meet more people because my grief group, it was like an 8-week program, right?
Yep.
And so it had finished, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, do you know Barry?" And I was like, "No, what's the last name?" And da da da. And I'm like, "Oh, my kids are friends with those kids." You know, he wanted to reach out, but doesn't really know you and didn't know how. And I was like, okay. And then I found out that he had lost his mother and brother to suicide.
Yeah, because the story, as I heard it, is he reached out to you and said, we have something in common. And he has two girls the same ages as Morgan and Sarah.
Right.
And he lost his mom and his brother to suicide, and he invited you out to coffee. And honestly, it sounds like a good Lifetime movie.
Right.
And then she fell in love and lived happily ever after with this new guy. And now she has 4 daughters instead of 2. Like it sounds like this beautiful, and it is. And
With a glass of like white Chardonnay, right?
yes, yes, yes. I remember I told my mom, Cheryl has a boyfriend, and I told her the story, and she was like, oh, that's wonderful. But my mom is a romantic. So she thinks you're happily ever after. She
Right.
doesn't understand that. She does understand. She's not a dumbass, but you know that you still hold Glenn and you're in a good new thing for years now.
Yeah. It like officially, I guess. So Glenn's been gone 12 years, over 12 years. So I would say like we've been living together for 10.
Wow.
You know, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just lucky in love because when I met him, I was like, oh, fuck me. And he did. And, and that was good.
It's so good. It's so
It's
good.
so good. And it was like, shoot, how are we together? And, you know, he's divorced. And I know that was very different. I mean, ways that our marriages ended. But we both look at each other and we're still like, this is amazing. Like, how do we get together? And he always says, Barry says, well, my mother and your Glenn got together and wherever they are and got us together.
That's so awesome. That really is awesome. Okay, that's a nice note to kind of switch gears and maybe wrap up a little. I guess I would ask you, Cheryl, how has this loss shaped the way you see life?
You know, it's fleeting. It's also, you gotta make it a life worth living.
Yeah.
And the only person who can do that is you. And I knew that on that day when I sat with the kids and said, we need to be the best people. And I didn't mean how we look on the outside, but what is it that we're going to do in this lifetime now from something that a tragedy that has defined us as a family completely and yes, individually.
Yeah.
How now do you live?
I love it because most of us, if we live long enough, will have to do that.
Yeah.
We'll go through something, maybe not as devastating as what you've gone through, but most of us will go through loss and have to learn how to keep going and living fully. I share about my mom a lot, but she's 92. She's pretty much deaf. She's in a lot of chronic pain, has lost her husband, all her siblings, all her in laws, and now my cousins are starting to pass away. And she is my greatest role model because she says, I cry in private and I live for the living. She is here while she's here. And she is intentional and she is present. And she also says, you've got to take life undiluted. And I kind of love that. Okay, so anything, Cheryl, you want to say about your kids? You've been very open with them and gotten them all the help they've needed over the years. anything you all do to keep Glenn's memory alive? I'm assuming, knowing you, you talk about him openly. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. I think they're doing great right now. I forget that expression. You're only as happy as your least happy
You're,
child or whatever that is, right? I think as of today, I've got two happy ones. So goody gumdrops.
I think so too.
I think that, Sarah this year created a playlist for the three of us on Glenn's yard site, January 3rd. And it's a great playlist and a lot of songs that, bring up memories for Sarah. And then Morgan added some, and I added some that the kids don't even know how much he loved some of this music. And it's fun. I love listening to it. So that was such a gift from
Yeah.
Sarah, who has had a very different process than Morgan. And Morgan was older. So we found Morgan a therapist. Morgan did therapy, stopped when Morgan felt, she needed to stop, always taking care of herself. And then after she graduated college, she needed to deal with it again. It was like another life change. And without your dad there, whoa, that was a big deal.
Yeah. And I remember her going into the workforce and going on interviews and making
Right.
these decisions like Glenn wasn't there to as a sounding board.
That's right. And so I was so proud of her that she sought out the therapist. And I still think she's not in, I don't believe right now she's in therapy ongoing, but she has a connection still with the therapist. And then Sarah, it wasn't really until Sarah was 21 where they were having a hard time talking about Glenn. They couldn't remember any memories, like lost a lot of like memories and didn't want me to fill in the blanks. Listen, I gave them their space as much as they needed. And, they really figured it out. They sought out therapy and a group therapy. And I forget what kind of therapy Sarah did, but, that one's, again, you're never healed. You're always healing.
Yes. I think that's true for every human being alive. We're always healing.
I agree.
And we think we're doing good and something will trigger us and we're like, wait, what? I still have that stuff coming up. It's just, we're human. Okay.
Oh, wait, I want to say one more thing about the kids.
Yes.
I guess my greatest joy in seeing them right now is they love and they are loved by other people.
Yes.
And also in a most intimate, romantic way. That makes me feel like the future is so open to them.
Yeah. I think that's so important because him leaving the planet the way he didn't cause these wounds that they won't open up to love. Right. And Morgan is married.
Yep, Morgan's married.
How did you all honor Glenn at her wedding?
So I really didn't want it to be part of my speech. Like I wanted to acknowledge it on some level, but I also didn't want to be like Glenn, because no, Glenn isn't here. Glenn chose not to be here. But also, that is their dad, right? So I wore his wedding ring and I wore something. I had something of my dad's that I gave to Barry that Barry wore. I had something of Glenn's that I wore. I wore something of my mother's, something that Barry gave me, something that my children gave me. And we also honored Barry's mom. I wore something of hers. And that was so intimate because only I knew that.
Love it.
And in the ceremony, Morgan and Jacob, they were blessed in Glenn's talit, which was beautiful. And the rabbi had mentioned Glenn. And, the three of us had a little moment before everyone walked down the aisle. And, I said some stuff. He's missing out, but he's here.
Yeah.
And it's the three of us. Here we are. Let's go do it.
Yep. Okay.
So it was beautiful.
Wow.
And, Glenn's parents were there and they spoke. So Morgan and Jacob honored them and his sister and her family was there. So that was nice.
Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to say about suicide prevention?
Yeah, it's so tough because if your person is going through something, the check-ins are I would imagine, enormously helpful to the other person. Because remember, it's not about you. they're not going to stick around for you. They have to stick around for themselves.
Right.
And, God, I could have given Glenn such a good talking to about why he needed to stick around for himself.
Yeah.
But if the person is lost or whatever is happening, because emotionally, we don't really know. I don't know what was going on with him, or chemically. I don't know. I mean, he played it like, life was beautiful, rose-colored glasses always. So I don't know. I think our best bet is to keep talking about this stuff and talking about stories. I mean, when I'm worried about somebody, and I had every right to be worried about my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a lot of writing just personally for me, and you have to calm yourself down. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Put that
Yeah.
phone number out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the number to call or text 24/7 in the United States, the suicide hotline, is 988. And you can reach out there if you're concerned about yourself or somebody else. And suicide is really, really tricky because the people that talk about wanting to kill themselves often are not the ones that will do it. It's like a bid for connection. And often the people who do it don't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. And I think when we see people and they seem like they have it all together, don't trust that. And really ask people how they are. And sometimes the best way to get people talking on a more deep, intimate level is to share vulnerably yourself. Because when we do that, even if somebody else doesn't open up, we don't know the impact we've had. It could make them feel less alone. And the other thing you said that was really, really true is you cannot want somebody's life more than they want it themselves. You can't have a will for somebody else. They have to have a will to be here. So I think that was really, really important because so many people, when they lose somebody to suicide, do the whole bargaining thing. I coulda, shoulda, woulda. And you got to trust that you couldn't have prevented it. It's
Right.
kind of like people with an addiction. You can't get somebody sober. They
Right.
have to get themselves sober. So I don't know. I've had people in my life that have really struggled and it feels so heavy and you want so badly to give them, say the right thing or connect in the right way or get them the right help. And they're not going to follow my script. I don't have anybody's answers. I know you guys have been involved with organizations around suicide prevention. Can you talk about that?
We did with my suicide grief group, the walk. It's like Suicide Prevention Association, whatever it was National Suicide Prevention. And then my kids got really involved in that local organization at University of Michigan. And they participated every year that they were in school and raised money and walked, and their cousins joined them. And I often just try, I know like my social media has no like influence really or bearing on people, but I love when other people who are more influential post about the National Suicide Hotline, especially for the gay community, the trans community. I mean, those are the individuals that I'm most worried about today.
Right, I know. And anybody going through depression, you might think it's not worth it to pick up the phone and call that number. And it can change everything because I know from being low, you can feel like it's never going to get better. And you can't flip a switch and make everything better, but you can turn the ship. And there's always hope. And again, that number in the United States, 24/7, you can text or call 988. I guess I want to ask you two more questions. What gives you hope today?
That's big. That's a big question. I think, like I said earlier, the fact that my two kids are loved in such a big way, as a parent, you just don't know what you're getting yourself into, truly, right? And when you can see them as adults being loved and them loving in all the things that my relationship started truly with Glenn, in trust and in honesty and kindness and respect. It's just, that's the hope. for the next generation. When you're loved fully, unconditionally, that resonates. You can be full.
Yeah, I love that. And you have shared so much wisdom during this interview so far. But before we sign off, is there anything you didn't say or any advice you'd want to impart to someone going through this?
Yeah, I do. Actually do have something I wanted to share. So my girlfriend is an artist, and right after Glenn died, became WTF GC. What the fuck, Glenn Cooper? Because what the fuck, Glenn Cooper? And our really good friend made t-shirts. Like, that was really it. We all have a t-shirt. It was pretty great. So classic. Anyway, so my girlfriend made some art for me and the kids. And one of the pieces that hangs up in my bathroom, she did this beautiful, I don't know if it's with pencil or charcoal. I can see it from here. And it's just a continuous what the fuck. What the fuck? What the fuck? And it's framed and it's big. It's a big piece. Hangs over my bathtub. And once Barry asked me, like, why do we still have that? I said, because I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget. And I was worried if that came down, which probably is like magical thinking, right? I'd forget about him. I had so many conversations with him under that piece of art in those early days. I had a conversation, with my own self. What's my life worth living? There were some really low moments. And, thankfully there was no plan, and I wouldn't do that. I didn't do it. But what the fuck? I need that.
I
I
love it.
need him every fucking day.
I love that. When you were sharing, I was trying not to laugh because it is so funny. It's funny, it's irreverent because so many people have like the date of birth, the date of death, and loving memory of, and you have a what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, and the t-shirts. I love it. And I'm glad you shared about that, going that low yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's real. That
Mm.
is real. And thank God you climbed out for your kids and for yourself and for so many people. I mean, Sheryl, you're the reason your kids are in happy relationships.
Thank
You
you.
are the reason, Sheryl. You modeled it with Glenn, you model it with Barry, and you never, as low as you got, never lost hope for that,
Mm-hmm.
which is so good.
Yeah. I mean, I like my life. I don't really want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And even in the lowest of the moments, I knew, I was going to get up from that exact spot and put my workout clothes on at 4:30 in the morning and go to work out, because that was the one thing also that allowed me to feel human.
Yeah.
It was painful to run on the treadmill at 5:30. It was painful to lift the weights, but it was so like tangible to exactly how I was feeling inside. So it was like the physical and the emotional were coming together, and the endorphins just took a lot of that pain away for those moments.
This is such a good topic. I wish we talked about this when we were talking about the blog and the meal train. So, working out was a great tool for you. I know we're backtracking here, but any other tools that helped you in the immediate aftermath of losing Glenn and just in your healing and grieving process?
I know I did mention, like, in the therapy, there were 3 rabbis that I spoke to pretty consistently. They helped me understand, because I was like, wait, am I still married? Even though, till death do us part, right? And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, are you sure about that? I didn't want to accept that. But, ask the questions. It allowed me to eventually take off my wedding ring. I mean, it's the same thing. I just wrote this piece. I'm writing this poetry book, and this piece is called Eyes. It's about, I've been told by multiple people who would know if Glenn's eyes were open or closed when they found him.
Oh,
I don't know the answer. I wanted to know. Were his eyes open when you saw him? I don't know. The few people the coroner, the friend, the police, I was told, but
they don't know.
I don't know. They told me, all those people told me, but I just cannot hold it.
Wait, they told you they were open or closed?
I don't remember.
Oh. You don't know.
I
Okay.
don't know. I just don't know. I really, truly don't know.
Yeah.
But I do remember them saying, no, you're not married anymore. So clearly, I needed to know that. I
Yeah.
don't need to know if his eyes were open or closed, but somehow not knowing allowed me to still kind of keep him alive.
Interesting. How
I hope that
soon?
made sense. I'm so
It
sorry. It was
made
so like,
total sense.
yeah.
How long after his passing did you even want to dip your toe in and date?
Oh, probably about 5 months. I mean, listen, I was 44. Sex was just getting really good again. It just was because, our kids were out much later. They were sleeping out. They were going to camp. We had a whole plan. It was fantastic,
Yeah.
more than it had ever been because we were
Wow.
older, more comfortable. I mean, willing to take more chances with each other.
Yeah.
It was like, shoot. And I was watching Scandal with
Yeah.
Kerry Washington and Tony Goldwyn. Oh, and it was hot. And
Were
so,
you reading that book everybody was reading at the time, 50 Shades?
oh, yeah, I read one of those. I mean, God, listen, I had a vibrator, still do, but I was given advice. You got to pick one room in your house after your partner, spouse dies and redo it. You just got to redo it. So we always wanted to do the bathroom. So that's what I did. And then the vibrator got lost. And then it was like, well, I better find the real thing.
So 5 months though, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
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 Were you looking to just have adventures or were you looking for something serious?
No, I was not looking for something serious. It's funny though, because being, mid 40s, it's hard not to like, oh, could this, what would this be like? This one's really young. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want to support him. Ew.
Yeah.
And like, he doesn't even have a house. He lives with two roommates, like,
So you had some adventures.
I
I'm
did.
so glad you had some
Thank
adventures.
you. Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, I love that about you because there was so much pain and sadness. And then you kept saying yes to life.
Yeah.
You kept saying yes to living. And you still do. What's a day in the life for Sheryl Cooper these days?
This is all really since Glenn died. I wake up, open my eyes. What's today? Friday. Okay. What am I doing? Okay. I know. Okay. Let's go.
I love it. I live like that too. I live like that. I wake up and my head's going back to the past or my head's going so far ahead. And I'm like,
Mhm.
Amy, it's Friday. You get to be here in a healthy body and show up for your life and for the people that are still on the planet that you love.
Mhm.
Let's go.
Mhm.
It really is. It's actually a beautiful way to live.
It is. And there are days I'm not trying to make my life like it's so easy because no, still. But like this morning, I was like, I don't have enough time in bed to like just sit and drink coffee, and I'm like, oh, I have to go do my workout and da da da. And I'm training for this, my own little weird personal goal. I just want to jump rope to the Selena Gomez song that's Call Me If You Break Up because it's 2 minutes and 37 seconds, I think. And I know I can do a full song while I'm jump roping.
That's really good, Cheryl.
I thank you. And so I'm practicing. I'm in training mode because by the end of the summer, I will jump rope for 2.5 minutes and a little more.
So, Cheryl, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you want to share with the audience about upcoming projects or if people can reach out to you?
Yes. In fact, one, I'm writing this poetry book, which I maybe mentioned, and it's really about the last 12 years. There'll be chapters, something about how awful it was and the loving part of my life and the healing part. And I think it will resonate with people if you've lost any person or thing or job or whatever. And maybe our TV show is being resurrected. That's exciting. So we're working on that. And we call it Life After You, but it'll be called something else. And I have a Substack. You can find me on Substack.
So people can find you on Substack. If they're not on Substack, do you have a public Instagram or anything
Yeah,
like that?
public Instagram, which is I'll just spell it SCRAIGSLIST. My maiden last name is Craig. So it's S Craigslist.
Oh, I love it. So if anybody wants to reach out to Cheryl, DM her. Sheryl, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your very courageous journey and the way you have always lived your life and continue to. You're such a light.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for Here's the Memo Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to follow, subscribe, reach out, and most importantly, share the episodes that inspire you with the people you care about. Remember, you are not alone, and that's your memo.